Hello, this is Australian therapist Christine Sutherland, and I've created this video to give people hope that depression can be cured very rapidly and usually without medication. About 9 years ago, the World Health Organization gazed into its crystal ball and came up with the prediction that by the year 2020, the cost of depression would overtake the cost of treating all of the cardiovascular diseases combined. Now, if this were a psychic you would recommend to your friends, how confident would you be in their ability? Well, in this brief time, depression has gone from outside the top 10 to being the fourth after heart disease, and we've still got lots of years to go. We're seeing increased suicide rates from the baby boomers. We're seeing increased youth suicide with depression, often because of drug use. Things are really tough for a lot of people right now with incredible stress due to the world financial situation. And to top it all off, the most effective proven strategies have actually not been made available yet. So where does depression come from? Well, there are two primary types of causes, and it's terribly important to understand this because we must address both. Some depression is entirely caused by biochemical changes. In other words, there are no psychological factors at all. So using psychology to address that type of depression is a complete waste of time. Next, there's depression which is caused almost exclusively by psychological factors, and this includes even prenatal factors. Now, looking at the biochemical causes of depression, here's a great checklist to go through. Nutrition must be correct because if it's not, we don't fuel our body and our brain properly. Neither our body nor our brain can function, and we quickly become ill, physically and mentally. We must be very careful of drug use, avoiding illegal drugs, cutting down or cutting out so-called legal drugs, and also checking medication that might be implicated in depression. Everyone needs close relationships in order to be well. And we also need a satisfying sex life, meaning that there's deep and rewarding emotional intimacy as well as sexual interaction with somebody that we love. We must examine the amount of stress in our lives. We need to have a humane working life that is safe, that rewards us adequately, that recognizes us for what we do, and that is actually possible to do because we've been given the resources to do that job, whether that's at home or whether that's a job outside the home. Do you know that 1 in every 5 deaths in hospitals is directly caused by lack of adequate activity? Enough said, activity is important. We also need to get out into the community and engage with people socially. And we need routine, order and predictability in our lives in order to set our body clocks and help our brains and our bodies to function well. We need to have adequate sleep, and we need to have purpose and meaning in our life. There's lots more information about these very important lifestyle factors in the free book, 17 Solutions to Common Health Problems. Just become a free member of the website realhelpfordepression.com and you can immediately download that free ebook and lots of other things as well. Now let's look at the other part of depression, the psychological side. This is to do with conditioning, the way our brains learn to respond to lifetime events. Pavlov decided that almost everything we do and everything we feel is as a result of conditioning rather than choice or free will. And we're subject to this conditioning before we're born and then throughout our lives. And it's the brain that creates this conditioning. Information comes in through the thalamus, is interpreted by the amygdala and hippocampus. Information goes through to the hypothalamus, which in turn tells the pituitary gland to communicate with the rest of the endocrine system to send particular hormones into our body and our brain to make us feel certain ways. Pavlov was just a step away from learning how to wipe out this kind of conditioning. What he did was rather barbaric. He gave dogs electric shocks at the same time that he presented food to them, with a result that they learned to salivate when they were shocked. In further experiments, he learned that the further away from the shock site that he gave succeeding shocks, the less the dog salivated, until eventually he got far enough away that the dog didn't salivate at all. Now you might think, well, of course not, because it was the original shock site that was associated with salivation, so why would the dog salivate when it was shocked well away from there? Well, in fact, the surprising thing is that even when Pavlov re-shocked the original site, salivation no longer occurred. He had extinguished that conditioned response. If only he'd gone just one step further, people would have been receiving this information 100 years ago, and millions of people would have been saved from depression, anxiety, trauma, and a whole lot of other emotional problems, if only they had known. Because the trick is, if at the same time we're putting the information into the thalamus, for instance, the electric shock, we put in a whole lot of other stuff which is very different, multi-sensory information, we will break down that conditioned response in such a way that we extinguish it and it cannot come back. The golden rules for wiping out that kind of conditioning that makes people feel depressed or anxious or fearful is that conditioned responses are not strong. They are not set in cement. As long as we know what we're doing, they are fragile and we can very quickly and easily wipe them out. And if we wipe them out well enough, they don't come back. An example would be, going back to our dog picture again, and I've got dogs here in honour of Pavlov and his experiments on dogs, and also because depression is often referred to as the black dog. So here we're patting the dog, we're getting the dog to smell a bone, play with a ball, and there's a cat nearby. That's multi-sensory stimulation. And that's what we need to wipe out depression and other unwanted reactions. Research which backs this up: in the year 2000, there was a depression trial here in Perth that had a 98% recovery rate from moderate to severe depression with no relapse at 6 and 12-month checkup. Also, the South American studies of nearly 50,000 people, a 14-year study showing using brain mapping that this therapy actually alters brain function. The brain maps to prove that are available for everyone to examine. And you can read the full text on our site for clinicians, bmsa-int.com. One of the techniques that we use is called NeuroStim, and it very quickly eliminates depressed or fearful or anxious feelings. Another is called the resource triangle. It's a good idea to have several of these multi-sensory techniques so that if one doesn't work at any given time, you just ditch it and move to the next. You'll always have a technique that will work for you. And you can learn these techniques very thoroughly and with help. The manual Relieving Depression is available at realhelpfordepression.com. And if you can become a free member and download free books and also get help, or you can join as a paid member and also get the depression manual and free counselling for 12 months. If you're a clinician and would like to learn more, please visit BMSA to find out more about that. Please feel very welcome to contact me personally. I'm Christine Sutherland. I hope this video has given you hope that depression can be cured very rapidly and without medication. Thank you for listening.